What's up, friends, and welcome to the weekly lineup show. I am your host, Aaron Bruski. How's it going, folks? Hope you guys are having a good Monday afternoon. There are 3 days left of regular season basketball. I am distressed, but we will have playoff ball. But for those of you who play season-long fantasy sports, that's not going to help you much now, is it? Is it? All right, so what we're going to do is completely jack up our own broadcast here because as typical,
I am your host, Aaron Bruski.
I don't do things right. So we will mute this tab real quick.
There are 3 days left of regular season basketball.
Wherever that might
I am
be.
stressed.
That's kind of how my Monday is going. I don't have the great Dan Vespers with me, so I am left behind to deal with the technology of the day. Though I am running a tech site, I'm not good at this. So we'll just deal, and we will keep on going. What I want to do here today is I want to go through some storylines that I think have some impact as far as lineup decisions this week. I will keep an eye out for your questions in the chat box. I will try to find the source of this odd sound that's repeating my voice. I don't know where that's coming from, but we will find it. Oh, yes. We will find it. So I see Tiberius is in the chat room already. What's up, Tiberius? Hope you've been having a good last week of the season. It's been, for myself, kind of a mixed. I'm like, I feel like I'm finished in like fifth in like every league I'm in, except for the ones that I'm in the money on. I don't know if I have a position on. Do I like, just like a crash and burn loss, or does like fourth or fifth outside of the money just frustrate me more? I don't know. All of my teams are surging. If there were 2 to 3 weeks more in the left in the season, I feel like I would be just fine. But so are the excuses coming out of my mouth. So looking at kind of how I approach this week, I definitely have a huge focus on the schedule, playoff tiebreakers, things of that nature. And I think that's a good place to start, where we've been starting kind of in every aspect of this. We're trying to get the playoff picture understood so then we can make decisions from there. So as of last night's action, I think the important things that you need to know are the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics are tied, but it does not appear like Cleveland is going to make a hard push for the 1 seed, and that doesn't surprise anybody. They have just about everybody resting tonight, which is interesting, I guess, on the outside, simply because it's been shown on TMZ Sports that they went to Club Live after their loss, and really, I don't care. But you might see a little bit of talking head blowback from that. Kyrie, Kevin Love, LeBron James will all rest, which has playoff ramifications because the Heat are knee-deep in their own playoff chase. And I'm sure the teams that are in that mix are not thrilled that the Cavs are resting players. So to each their own. I'm not going to get into that mess. And frankly, I could care less if the Cavs rest their players. They've earned that right. Elsewhere in playoff land, Washington has acquiesced to their 4 seed. That means that Toronto might be equally as, I guess, conservative in the way that they deploy guys. There's actually no chance for Washington to jump up and grab the 3 seed. So I would be very wary of both teams' players. And this would also be a good time to now check in with the teams that have 1 game this week. And that would be Memphis, New York, Phoenix, and the aforementioned Toronto. So those are your spot plays. If you have to set a weekly lineup, then you're looking at 50% of the value for those players. And really, I mean, looking at those teams, I don't know, Memphis with Mike Conley and Marc Gasol, very risky starts. I mean, it's not hard to see that team sitting any players. The Knicks, their best players are the ones that are at risk, and I don't know that you're going to reach up and grab anybody for 1 game in a weekly lineup there. Phoenix, I don't think even like Devin Booker, Tyler Ulis, you'd have to be category hunting, and that is a big theme here. If category hunting dictates a decision, then yeah, you're going to be, I guess you would theoretically have one of these one gamers in play if somebody's elite in a category you're hunting. But on the whole, if you're still competing across, say, 5 or more categories and you're still looking at overall value, it's really hard to reach up and even grab like a Devin Booker in Phoenix. None of them really stand out. In Toronto, the big question would be like Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. And I think you could actually roll the dice there on either of those guys. At least there's a reason to do so. I feel like there's pretty good odds in relation to the bottom of your roster, where even if they play well over 2 games, they might not even come close to the 1 game that a Kyle Lowry gets you. Really risky business. That's what this week is all about. And you just kind of got to live with the risks. And there's going to be plenty of more surprises before now and lineup lock time. So those are your 1 gamers. Back to the standings. The bottom of the East is still fun, and this is keeping things really interesting for a lot of fantasy owners, because you got Atlanta 9 games back, Milwaukee 10, Indy 11, Chicago and Miami 12. One of these teams will not make it, and you're going to have to really, if you're looking at players where you have really close lineup decisions, you're going to have to almost like run the scenarios chronologically. So look at the order of the teams playing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, figure out who could be eliminated. So say, I was looking at a Frank Kaminsky situation the other day, and I don't quote me on this, but I believe Charlotte and Atlanta play first. Do they play today? No, pardon me. It was Charlotte and Milwaukee. If Milwaukee loses this one, they can actually still catch the 5 seed, and then it comes down to tiebreakers. And so you kind of got to work those scenarios out and see who, is there going to be a massive rest for one of your players, and rest. So, with 3 games separating all 5 teams, you're looking at the middle of the pack there and saying, okay, Miami being on the bottom and also being one of the better teams, especially getting the Cavs resting tonight, you probably aren't worried too much about rest for Miami, Chicago, and Indy. But as you get up to Milwaukee and Atlanta, there start to become rest issues, because it's possible that they separate from the pack. So the East is interesting like that. Of course, if you want to go to tankathon.com, that's a site I use to just judge the bottom and figure out who's tanking for what and why. I don't think there's a lot of tanking this year. And, discussion surrounding tanking is mostly terrible, so we won't talk about that. In the West, we have a lot of clarity. It's really just the Clippers and Jazz for the 4 and 5 slot to see who gets home court advantage. The Clippers have the tiebreaker there. So we're going to find out pretty soon here. In fact, a Clippers win and a Jazz loss, and you're looking at both teams not needing to play hard in their last game. Also, it looks like the Jazz have sort of done the right thing, in my opinion. They've acquiesced, and they're going to be resting Gordon Hayward. Now, a recent report just trickled in that George Hill is going to play a few minutes, and I think they'll just do what a lot of teams have done with the rest, and I do think that this is actually both smart and good for the league, is this sort of like alternated who's going to rest and when. So like Clay's just hit the news wire a second ago. Clay is going to rest. Steph is going to play. So you just bring one guy out of the fold. Your team keeps its continuity that way. Nobody has to kind of put on too much workload. You don't, lose development games. Even veterans need development games. Want to stay in a rhythm heading into the playoffs. You don't want to go in cold. So I think you're going to see that over this week. You might have one star rest one game and then the next star rest the next. So that is the only race that's close in the West. Everybody else is locked in. And, with that amazing Russell Westbrook shot on Sunday, the Nuggets got knocked out. And that will be one of the things that we cover here. Okay, so that standings check is done. See some more questions piling up here in the chat room. I'm going to go through some storylines here, and then we're going to circle back. We'll get your questions answered, and we will go from there. So what we have first on my list of storylines, we have the Cavs resting, and I think that Channing Frye is somebody that owners want to get. I would roster him. I think that he's got a great chance to be productive for these last 2 games. Beyond that, you really are gambling. I think that let me just confirm the rest report real quick in case somebody snuck by me. It looks like J.R. Smith will play, and that's the guy I think you can look at real close. I think Kyle Korver might be a dark horse for some value in this one. Darren Williams might get you a low-end line. I do think that they will spread out the production, and it will probably – I mean, this could very likely be a blowout where the Heat win by 20 or 30. And, the Cavs just live to fight another day. So I'm not overly excited about some of these fringe guys. Iman Shumpert might be a guy that you look at and say, hey, maybe you can get me a few threes and steals in a game where everybody is sort of resting and there's not a lot of value to be had. Next up on my list of goodies here is you got Dwayne Wade getting an 18 to 22 minute limit. I wouldn't really pay attention to that limit. I could see him getting 25 minutes or even 26, maybe 27. If it's a close game and Wade says he feels good, he's going to keep playing. They think they put this minute limit out there just almost as like cover in case he doesn't play more, or if he does actually feel hurt, then he has sort of that kind of the expectations aren't in the wrong place. So what does that mean? Well, we know that Rajon Rondo's out. Jerian Grant's going to start. He's been good lately, and I think he's worth consideration in your lineup. There's risk, but it just depends on what you're looking at for options. The fact that he's playing well and Rondo's out, Wade might be on a minute limit. Those things all work in his favor. Chicago's obviously going to be playing their, playing for a must-win game because it more or less is a must-win game, and they got Orlando. So it's not, I will say that Elfrid Payton is, he presents difficulties on defense, but his defense is a little bit overrated. Whatever. Rondo being out takes a significant ball handler out of the equation. I think the confluence of Rondo being out as well as Wade being on a minute limit, I think that makes you more apt to start Nikola Mirotic with at least a little more confidence. So Chicago, big storyline heading into tonight's games. We saw reports that John Henson and Malcolm Brogdon are both available for tonight's game. So in that against Charlotte, I don't know. I think you could probably put Brogdon in. Kemba Walker's probably not going to play in this one. Not that Kemba really matches up well with Brogdon, but mostly the fact that it's going to be Brian Roberts that gets the bulk of minutes there if Kemba doesn't play. That's somebody that Brogdon can bully around, and that would make me more apt to believe that Brogdon's a good start. Sorry, weird stuff, flash across TV. And I am very distractible, as you can see. That dog has a puffy tail. Otto Porter shows up on the injury report as a game-time decision for tonight. And here's the thing. They're not playing to win this game. They're going to play their starters limited minutes, if at all. This, to me, smells like an Otto Porter, either absence or low-minute game. Kelly Oubre, I don't think he's going to, break down the box score or anything, but he's going to be probably a better than 50% chance for a low-end line. So if his categories are something that can help you out, he's definitely worth a look. Along those same lines, Marco Bellinelli is questionable with his finger injury, and this is all kind of pointed towards can Jeremy Lamb have 2 good games to end the season? If Kemba sits, they're going to need offense. Jeremy Lamb provides that. He's also somebody that I think Charlotte needs to figure out if Steve Clifford and him can coexist, and not on the that they get at each other and fight level, but is Jeremy Lamb somebody that Steve Clifford is going to put his stock into going forward? Because he's got talent, he's got skill, the awareness and the defensive tenacity and all of the things that have kept him off before. Is that something that he can provide? Because if not, you might just move him while there's a lot of still, I think, intrigue about the value of Jeremy Lamb and what he can bring to the table. And he's just kind of wasting it there all on the bench. And, Charlotte doesn't have a lot to show for this year. So, you start to wonder maybe should they have played him a little bit more? So I had Lamb really high on this. And if I had known for sure that Kemba Walker was going to be missing games, I had suspected he would, and that knee would be at the core of it, I'd have had Lamb a lot higher on my lists and maybe even, in the top 2 or 3. So as I made my waiver wire decisions this last week. Also showing up in reports, Thabo Sefolosha is getting closer. I would suspect that he gets a game in here somewhere, whether it's this first one or the second one. I'm not too worried about Torian Green's value. I think he's a strong start this week. Really profiles as a guy that they both want to develop for the playoffs, as well as a guy that will handle the minutes, and he's got young legs, and that's somebody that they would rely on. I would think he's almost a must-start player unless you don't need his categories. Popovich, Greg. I don't know how many Popoviches there would be out there that we would be talking about. He says he's not going to rest his guys. I think that's really interesting. I think that he might go with what we saw over the weekend, is where he plays his starters, 20 or less minutes, and that's going to be frustrating for owners because now you just don't know who's going to get what in San Antonio. So I think you can look away from San Antonio in many cases if you have to make a weekly lineup decision this week. That's going to be really hard to predict. I think Kawhi can stay in your lineups. I think that, you can give some possibility of starting LaMarcus Aldridge and Pau Gasol, but it's going to be a mess, and you might be better off. Like an aggressive owner, I think I actually had the same exact decision with Pau Gasol one year. It was iffy if he was going to play, and I went with the name, and this was like 8 years ago, and then it was not the right call. I should have gone with a no-name player, and I said to myself, never again. And so guaranteed minutes at this stage of the year are almost always going to win out unless you have elite players. Kawhi is obviously an elite player. I think you could go with Kawhi and feel pretty good about it. Who else? We got, Chris Dunn, the worst 5-game week ever known to man. I got whooped just as bad as you guys did. It pisses me off because I was never on the Chris Dunn bandwagon. I thought the people that were pronouncing him the second coming, harping about his summer league, I thought those people were just completely off their rocker. The idea that he got I think I don't know what his total minutes were over the 5 games, but it was something in the ballpark of maybe 20, 25, and he didn't do anything with those minutes. The Tibbs experience for him has got to have been humbling. Defensively, the issues were that he didn't show any great technique in college. He showed a lot of problems, and basically he was pitched as a defensive stopper right off the bat and a playmaker right off the bat, and he doesn't have really either skill, and the shot right now is a question as well. So I bought, and I advised you guys to buy, and so clearly I have led you guys astray. My bad. But again, I'm still kind of curious, is this the worst 5-game week ever out of somebody that, you pick up looking at kind of like the logic of it, saying, the Wolves really do need to develop this guy. And there being minutes even in the previous week to kind of give you a context. Yeah, this is kind of not an easy call, but it's one that you almost have to take. Because in 5 games, if he has those games that he was having previously, he racks you up a lot of steals, assists, etc. So now we just have to evaluate him as just a guy. He's just a guy that would hopefully develop and, get you some, low-end point guard stats over these last 2 games. But we don't even know that. So I think your probably best bet is to leave him alone and then be ready to pick him up as a streaming option if they do relent and give him the minutes down the stretch in Minnesota. But I don't even with the way it looks like they want to keep developing under the starters. I don't think Chris Dunn's going to be worth anything in these last 2 games, but who knows? Maybe I'll just get it wrong. It's one of those things where the minute that you bet against him, the basketball gods kick in. Okay, enough on Chris Dunn. Ish Smith shows up on my list here. Ish is going to get like all the minutes at point guard, it feels like. And that's going to be fun for fantasy owners because Reggie Jackson is out and Bino is out, and there's just nobody else there. Boban was a huge story over the weekend. I don't know if it was like earth-changing, changing the fantasy world. I saw some stuff out there about that. That was a little weird. But he's always produced when given the minutes, and he's going to get, say, 20, 24 minutes tops per game. And there's just things that he's got unstoppable shots. Like you can't block his shot. It really going to be interesting to see how he develops as an NBA player because it's just unstoppable. Like so he will get his points, he will get his rebounds. Steals and blocks are a major question mark for him. He's skilled. So and Detroit is pretty much locked into keeping him as their backup center. So I'm really looking forward to what he does next year. This year, I think he's a pretty smart guy to have in your lineup. I mean, unless you don't need points and boards, which are going to be what you get from him, and field goal percentage. I think that, these are the things that you can bank on for sure. Ellenson might get some runs, so if you're desperate for what he provides, give him a look. As mentioned, the Jazz are resting Hayward. Hill is going to play a few minutes, and Rodney Hood is out. I think Joe Johnson is a very intriguing start. I think Joe Ingles is a very intriguing start over these next two games. So give both of them a look. In Sacramento, it's Scal time. That was fun to watch him get his numbers in Sunday's game, and it appears they've relented a little bit and are going to get him the touches that he deserves, and that's been about the point guards getting him the ball. Marquise Chris showed up on the injury report with a knee injury. Not sure how serious it is. We haven't heard much about it. Of course, they're going to play it safe, but I got this odd feeling that he'll be good to go. Houston is all about rest, I think. They get the Clippers. They don't have anything to play for except for James Harden's MVP award. And with the shot that Russell Westbrook made, it felt like the narrative had finally kind of like crystallized for voters and prognosticators and, media, et cetera. Right or wrong, whatever that is, it might be apparent to Harden that it doesn't matter what he does at this point. So they might be more apt to rest him. Lou Williams is already out. Somebody I'm looking at is Troy Williams. I think that he could be the guy that sort of benefits from all of these absences. I think that they will also use a staggered rest scenario. Like I saw Patrick Beverley pop up on a waiver wire this weekend. I thought I would love to have his production, but to me, it seems like he would profile as a guy that, needs the rest as much as anybody. I think that Trevor Ariza might come back and play a game just so he doesn't get out of rhythm. He rested in the last one. Ryan Anderson played in the last one, so he would be a candidate for rest. Clint Capella, I could see them getting him a game of rest. So it's a lot of uncertainty in Houston. Right next door in Dallas, similar uncertainty, but I think we can plan around it. Dwight Powell is obviously the big name there, and then Dorian Finney-Smith is the second name I think owners can get acquainted with here. We know Seth Curry is out. Yogi Ferrell hasn't been great, but I don't know. If we're predicting breakout games from this Dallas group, their home game, I believe it's on Wednesday. Is it Monday or Tuesday? Let me get my Dallas out here. Yeah, that's on Tuesday. It's at home, and then Wednesday they believe they're in Memphis. So they're going to play Dirk at home, and that could be an ode to Dirk type game. So you might see, production tilt toward him. Maybe not either. I mean, Dirk might not care, and there's going to be a big hullabaloo with Tony Romo in Jersey, so I can't wait to see that. God, I hope he gets into the game. That would just be phenomenal. So with that in mind, Dwight Powell is kind of an intriguing start. He had a really big game over the weekend, and that was the guy that we said, hey, you kind of almost have to throw caution to the wind and just throw him out there because he's the guy that profiles to have the production. Now, Dirk playing the same position as him, that is a little bit of a buzzkill, but I think if you start him this week, you got a good shot at 20 minutes in this first game and then a full-fledged, nobody cares type of a big Wednesday showing. So it's a little risky, but, the whole Dwight Powell experience is as risky as it gets anyway, so you might as well just, just go with it. Now, Finney Smith is more of a plotter. I think that he's also in line for about 50 minutes over the next 2 games at a minimum. And what you can expect there is low-end production. And he's the type of play, though, also. He might have a little upside as well. He's the type of play that last Wednesday of the season, the dreams were made of on that day. So I like both of those plays. Now, Denver is next on my list. And one last thing on Yogi. What I was going to say is he profiles as well as anybody to have a big game in a garbage time environment. I mean, he's going to handle the ball a lot. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Wes Matthews. I don't know that you'll see a lot of J.J. Barea. You might in the home game especially. But, Yogi hasn't had one in a while. He's due. And I wouldn't sleep on Yogi at all. Denver just got their hearts ripped out. I know there are a lot of guys on that team that probably aren't going to be there next year. I think you start with Gallo and Wilson Chandler, and I don't know that. I mean, it might be the case that Michael Malone says, hey, have a let me just quickly check and see these 2 games and make sure that they are where I think they are. See, Denver's at Dallas on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, Denver's at Oklahoma City. So, they're not even home fans to play for. I mean, maybe Michael Malone says, we want you to get your last hurrah with this team. But Gallo and Wilson Chandler would be 2 guys that I would say are candidates to sit. Moutier is the interesting play here because he's got an ankle injury, but Jamal Murray is, he can't play all 48. Jameer Nelson's out. I think you could take a pretty easy risk on Moutier and have the potential for some pretty big lines. Of course, the percentages are going to be an issue, and you just got to watch out for that. But at this stage of the season in a Roto League, you probably don't care about that. Also, a name that I'm looking at is Juancho Hernan-Gomez. There's really nothing but a hope and a prayer as of right now to justify a start there. I'm going to quickly do a news update because I'm just halfway expecting those guys to be announced out. Nothing new on the wire, it seems. But Juancho, I think that all the young guys are going to be given ample opportunity to play. So just keep an eye out for that, and also keep an eye out for a letdown. There's just a kind of an exhale that happens after a long season, that especially getting ended that way. There's 1 of 2 things that will happen here. One is they will be completely just dog tired after a long playoff chase, and they will exhale and they will suck for the next 2 games. 2 is they might use these next 2 games as ways to get that kind of anger out. They did get a little bit screwed in that game with the refereeing. It was Kenny Maurer called a really ridiculous flagrant foul and then compounded his error by calling a tech on Nikola Jokic. So they might come out with, Nikola might have something to prove that, after he might think he cost his team the game there. In reality, there's just a lot of terrible decision-making down the stretch by players, and it was a mess. That game was probably theirs. Not that they had a chance at winning the playoffs, but you definitely don't want to end a season like that. So Gallo, Will Barton, and also Wilson Chandler are guys that, Barton's already out, but the other 2 I think are guys that are going to be out. So you might be looking at more Mason Plumlee. They might want to use this as a way to look at Mason Plumlee next to Nikola Jokic a little bit. But Juancho and then even Malik Beasley. I wouldn't be surprised if Malik Beasley gets a start at the 3, or pardon me, maybe even the 2, depending on how they view his strength compared to Gary Harris. But either way, Malik and Juancho are your surprise pickup names out of Denver. I just thought that would be something to bring up. They don't play until Tuesday, so there's probably a little bit of delay in the market. Andre Roberson is questionable for Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know what they're going to do there, and it sucks because he was playing so well, steals and blocks for days. And, one thing that might be working in his favor is if they are going to kind of continue putting nails in the coffin of the MVP race, they might want Russ to have his players on the floor for that. Also, Billy Donovan did mention that he was dealing kind of with the rest versus rust scenario. So it doesn't sound like they're leaning towards rest. Roberson's knee has been a long-term issue, and I think they might opt for rest there. Evan Fournier is questionable on the injury report, so Jody Meeks might be somebody to keep an eye on or even jump the gun on if you need 3-pointers. In New Orleans, it looks like the tank is on. Jordan Crawford hasn't been great, but I think he could be good. And then Quinn Cook has been the favorite option compared to Tim Frazier, and he could be that, down the stretch guy for you. Portland, along the same lines as Denver, they might have the same type of phenomena. Is they just clinched, and now they're going to be, I think that they've been pushing real hard. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw either minimal minutes for Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, or just a staggered rest, or if they outright rest both of them. The wings are the ones that kind of pop up on radars because nobody's dropped the aforementioned, but guys like Mo Harkless, Evan Turner, Al-Farouq Aminu, they're floating around waiver wires, and people are wondering what to do with them. You're looking at them and you're saying, what is their upside? What is their potential for rest? Alan Crabb's foot, I think, puts him out for the rest of the year. I mean, there's really no reason to push him now that you've got a playoff slot locked up. Evan Turner has spent so much time on the sidelines prior to this month that I feel like they could say, "Hey, Evan, this is your time. We want to get you some minutes. You've been on the shelf." And so I looked really closely at Evan Turner. Al-Farouq Aminu has had a couple of tough falls and has been a little bit banged up, so they might lean away from him. And then Mo Harkless has been bad lately, and it might be a good opportunity for them to get him going. Noah Vonleh, is been playing minutes and would profile as a guy that they want to continue giving minutes to. So I think in that respect, there's some opportunity there for Portland speculators to get in on that group of wings. And Harkless, of course, has probably the best stat set. Aminu's been playing the best lately. Turner's been okay lately. And then again, we could see like McConnington and, guys from deep off the bench if Portland says, screw it, we're going to get all the way healthy, because they've been rolling. I mean, that team's been pushing really, really hard, and a letdown is definitely on the way, I think, at least in terms of overall energy and performance. Statistically, I think these guys might be able to break free. And then last one that showed up on my list was Nick Stauskas. I think that he's gone kind of underrated as a pickup. He might be playing point guard for a couple games for Philly. If anything happens to McConnell had a pretty nasty looking ankle roll. He's going to play, but Rodriguez is ruled out for the year. There's really nobody else to handle the point, and so I think Stauskas is a no-brainer pickup. He's going to get 25 minutes at a minimum, and that's an absolute minimum. And I think he could be playing 33, 35 minutes while having all of the ball handling duties. So you could see some like 20.4 rebound, 8 assists, 2 steal type lines with a bunch of threes and some terrible efficiency because he's doing too much. But I think that's going to work for you in most leagues. Okay, that was a rather lengthy run through the league. Let's see what we got here in terms of questions. We've got Tiberius holding it down in the last weekly lineup show of the year, getting that first question in. He says, do I think Millsap plays in both games in the back-to-back this week? I think there's a pretty good chance that he does. But it depends on this first Hawks game. Are they going to be winning or losing? And then what does Milwaukee do? Atlanta, the timing on their games, just to reconfirm, they play Tuesday and Wednesday. So they'll get a good sense of what happens here with Milwaukee today. Say what Milwaukee wins, though, I think that puts them in a position to play Millsap. Now, maybe they don't care. I mean, it's possible that they just want Millsap healthy. But I think in terms of an injured guy with a knee issue and kind of how risky he is already, I think that the chances of him successfully navigating through that are actually pretty good. And I don't know why my chat just cut off a bunch of your guys' questions. You guys hang tight. I'm going to do this pop-out chat and see. There we go. That's actually a useful feature. Thank you, Google. Next question up is, what are your thoughts on starting any of the Hornets in a weekly? Who is safe? I think Frank Kaminsky's pretty safe. I think that I don't know if I would call Jeremy Lamb safe, but I like his chances. I think that Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is probably pretty safe for what he brings. I think that you might see Miles Plumlee get some minutes here. They're a real kind of a riddle wrapped in an enigma, and they've been this way all year, and I have pretty much gotten this wrong, I should say, because what they're getting from pardon me, I'm switching some screens here. What they're doing is kind of beating the odds. All year they've not been healthy, and so when we look at their games played, they're all very high, and so looking at this week, is this going to catch up with these guys yet already? You see Kemba Walker, he's already ruled out. Batum's a guy that's as banged up as anybody, and there's no reason for him to go hard in these last few games. Michael Gilchrist is young. He's had shoulder issues. I think the youngness keeps him in the game. Marvin Williams, they need to preserve him, so he would be a candidate to rest. Frank, I think they want to keep going with his, his whatever you want to call his hot streak, and just keep the good vibes going. Cody might be a rest risk, and they might give Miles more minutes. But again, they're going to be thin, so I don't know how much they can actually do that. Marco being out is going to also exacerbate the issue if he is indeed out. He's questionable right now. So that's Charlotte in a nutshell. And then Clifford will probably bring the perspective that you should just run hard through the finish line. And so I think the safe ones are the young guys in that bunch. Okay, does Dunn get a shot this week or still relegated to the bench? I know that we covered this in the monologue, but I don't think so, man. I think that Tibbs is an old school guy, and he's going to make him earn those minutes. But I could be wrong. This is the hard part. You're going to get so many of these predictions wrong during this week. You just kind of got to look at the upside, and I don't know that he has the upside to justify the risk. Do I think Anthony Davis plays any games this week? I don't think so. I really don't. There's really no reason to play him. I've been looking at, one name I didn't mention was Cheikh Diallo. I think he could get in there and make some hay, some defensive numbers and some points and boards. We got Kemba out for the season. Oh, wait, I missed one in here. How risky are Gallo and Ariza this week? We covered this in the monologue, but likely one game I think is probably fair for Ariza. Gallo, I don't know if Gallo there's no real announcement on him, but I don't think to me, it makes sense to play Juancho, especially. And I think you got to get a look at Beasley while you've got this opportunity. So I just think that both of those guys, I think they're also kind of I think they're, if I had to guess, and I haven't heard this or even read this, if I had to guess, they're just not a good mix with Nikola Jokic at, point center. And that might be the source of frustration that you might hear inklings about. And, that the anti-Michael Malone brigade out there that, used to be plugged into the Pete D'Alessandro leaks, if you will. I think that they've kind of, I think there's something in that little vicinity of frustration there in Denver. And it might be, hey, you know what? It's been great, but peace out, and I think there's a lot of respect on all sides for Danilo Gallinari, especially in what he's been for that franchise. But Wilson Chandler is a guy who, he's gotten all of the run he could imagine this year and more. And but now it's probably time for him to move on too. So I think those two guys are going to be out. And I think Juancho in particular, he's shown a statistical upside as well. I think he is a sleeper pickup that you really don't have. You don't have a lot to grab onto right now, but he would pop up here in the next few hours. Tiberius says that the Blazers are resting, and yep, looks like they are resting indeed. The news is breaking in the middle of the show, and that's good, though. I mean, it's basically exactly what we thought it would be. So Evan Turner now becomes a major pickup. I think that he's going to be solid for these next 2 games. In fact, I might do the old talk and pick, if you guys don't mind. The old tuck and pick, because you can't lose out on the pick, can you? If you guys indulge me for 3 seconds here, I got to make sure that Evan Turner is available in my fantasy league. Take a break, grab a sip of water or whatever you're drinking these days. We'll see how fast acting this league that I found my way into a kind of random public league, and we'll see if they've got it in them. And I haven't done any of my other work to make sure that my leagues are humming along. It's hard. I would love to, maybe one year just literally do nothing but, attend to my teams, no analysis, no nothing. That'll be way in the future. Don't worry. Maybe when I'm an old man, drifting about some European ocean on my yacht, I will just do fantasy all day. My wife will kill me. All right, so to update, no Evan Turner availability. So sucks to be me. We move on. In light of that news, I do think then your Mo Harklesses, your Al-Farouq Aminus are also going to be must-start players, and it does not appear like they're showing up on any sort of injury or rest list, so that is good there. And yes, I did check for both of them in that one particular league. That's a sign of a degenerate. We move on. Looks like Jim Collins weighs in, says, once again, gentlemen, thank you for all of your hard work. First in both 8-cat row. That's awesome, dude. That is awesome. I love hearing about this stuff. And I hope you all had a great year. And I would be interested to hear all of your feedback on the Bruski 150 and everything that we're doing on the website. We are knee deep in development here, folks. This legal pad, this has been the bane of my existence for the last week. This legal pad is full of stuff, of new features and new this and new that. And so for us, the season doesn't end in 3 days. It just quite literally, there's a different season for us. It's the get ahead of the game season. And so we're excited about that. But all of your feedback will be very helpful for us on every front: website, services, you name it. Just hit us via email, and you can send that in. If you want to send it into Aaron@hoop-ball.com, that's fine. If you want to send it into, send it into that one. We would not send you to multiple places to send emails about our stuff. Sometimes I speak without thinking. I know this might be shocking to a lot of you guys, but that's what I do. Jim asked, should I sit Irving and LeBron for Richardson and Holmes? Okay, so that last game let me just see the last game for the Cavs here, because that's going to mean a lot. Cleveland, they play Toronto. That's not good for the prospects of sitting player or those guys starting, which I'm now thinking of my own teams and thinking Kevin Love might not play. Looking at the standings in the East, so at 2 and 3, so let's say Boston reaches up and gets that 1 seed. It's going to be Cleveland versus Toronto in that semifinal. That's not good. I could see Ty Lue resting those guys. It's about not giving your opponent any additional information. I mean, like, if you know you're going to play Toronto, and let's say you're like, and I'm not saying PJ Tucker's dirty, but let's say you think PJ Tucker's dirty, and you're like, I don't want to expose my guys to those guys doing anything crazy, foot under the jump shooter, anything at all. Like, we just get through this game and we be done. So to your question about LeBron, and we got LeBron and Irving for Josh Richardson and Rashawn Holmes. I mean, Holmes is just money right now. It's the waiver wire pickup of the year, probably. Who knows? And hoop ball poster boy, really. He's doing great. So I mean, straight up against Irving, he might even have a chance if they're going tit for tat. But Richardson, really great lately, and it doesn't sound like Deion Waiters is going to play more than spot minutes according to Spo. So they're good assets that you're looking at. I would say keep an eye on the news reports as much as you can, obviously. But if I got to make this call today, here's the thing: you're gonna lose on LeBron and Irving versus Richardson and Holmes if they play one game. Like just the collective stat ranking, if we're doing baseline projections. But you got things like variance involved here. Richardson could go down with 5 money counting stats and trump LeBron popcorn stat line with no money counters. It's possible that he could do that. So I'm gonna lean towards Richardson and Holmes here because they're healthy playing. And I really don't like the idea of that Wednesday game for the Cavs assets. That makes me bummed out because I feel like I'm not going to get the production I need out of Kevin Love. Damn it. Okay. Tiberius says, would you start Millsap over Marvin Williams? Yeah, I would definitely do that. I think Millsap's, if he's got 1 game in him, and if not 2, and then Marvin might not play at all. We'll see. Taking a quick check at the news here. So I think today will be a busy news day. Nothing too interesting coming through the wire. We got a Drew Holiday or Jordan Crawford question. I think Drew Holiday might keep playing. So, I mean, if you got to make that decision like right this second, I think I would hang on to Drew Holiday. Again, he missed all those games at the beginning of the year. He's got, free agency to worry about. I think that he's got a lot of reasons to play in these games and put up some big numbers, especially. So I'm going to go Drew there. Of course, that's subject to change. But do I think Solo Hill plays both games? Yeah, I do. I think that he's got a lot to prove. I think that management wouldn't mind at all if he went out there and had 2 really big stat lines to basically pitch to the people that are not happy about his contract, and hopefully he takes a lot of shots, because when he takes a lot of shots, he has these potential for these kind of dynamic 25-point, versatile stat lines. We had this thing where we would do the old pick and blurb all the time, because if you blurb then pick, you lose. Pick 2 to start this week: Shump, Lowry, DeRozan, Felton. I can't get behind Felton, and even if we know he's got the opportunity, he's been bad this year, and I know he's made everybody look. He hasn't made anybody look silly. He's been good in the past, but he hasn't been good this year. So he's off the list. I think I would probably start Lowry and DeRozan over Shump, and your assumption of a half game, I think, might even be more valuable than what Shump can do. Shump had that one stretch, but he's by and large pretty bad. Like you're doing a hope and a prayer for Shump. And I also think that Toronto might view that game as their last tune-up with those 2 guys and let them play deep into the 3rd quarter and maybe even a little bit of 4th quarter minutes, because they need the rhythm, and they're not. As it stands right now, I believe they get Milwaukee. I bet they're not thrilled about that. I don't think that they're looking at that matchup and saying, okay, well, we can play around here. I think they want to get those guys up to full speed. And Dwayne Casey's an old school coach. So I could see 38 minutes out of Lowry and DeRozan. So I'm going to go with Lowry and DeRozan in that set. Now we get Kyrie 1 or Brogdon 2 and an 8 cat weekly. I'm going to tell you to go Brogdon here. I mean, this is all dicey stuff, and Kyrie is a dynamic asset. But to me, just trying to read these tea leaves, I think that you gotta look at the fact that Kyrie plays zero, and sometimes that zero can be more critical than anything. If Brogdon, is going to be treated anything normal, he's going to get 50 minutes, and that, a zero is just so terrible, for your team. So I don't know. This is like one of those kind of like, do you have to reach for the stars? If you reach for the stars, maybe you go Kyrie. I just think Brogdon in a normal situation is going to get you pretty good numbers. So I'm going to go Brogdon here. And that's it, folks. That is it. This is the final weekly lineup show. I just got to thank you guys. I did this last night, but in case you didn't hear it, our core group, Tiberius, Jim, Movie Dude, so on and so forth. Like all you guys, we thank you guys so much. Everything you guys do, in the chat room, promoting the shows, ranking and reviewing. Jim, especially you on that front, you're an animal. I love the reviews that say Jim Collins turned me on to the show. Those are my favorite. As a company, as a group, what we're trying to do here, it's very grassroots, and it's also, very much about you guys. We're not benevolent to our corporate overlords. We are really trying to create something that hits the home run, so to speak, for you guys. Tiberius says he's waiting for our T-shirts and hats. We are working on that. The great Jake Fitzgibbon, he is on that, but we've cut him some slack since he is studying journalism over in New Zealand, and he cannot possibly wear any more hats for us, but he is looking into that. And we definitely, if there's anybody out there listening that does that stuff, we would love to hear your ideas, because we see a lot of cool stuff out there. I got to get over to the Oakland Coliseum or Oracle and talk with the Warriors World guys. They do a great job with that stuff, and see who they're using, because there's good opportunities for people that are good with art to get in and design some stuff that would be both good for us and good for you guys. And we'll get some hoop ball shirts for those of you who are part of the hoop ball crew, and we'll try to get that going. There's just so much, not enough time. I swear they could make these days 80 hours long, and I would run out of time each day. But again, thank you guys very much. We will be in touch with all the new stuff going on with the website. Again, feedback is both warranted and very much encouraged. You guys, good luck this week. Congratulations if you won, and we will talk with you guys soon. Peace. And yes, it did take me 10 seconds to figure out how to turn this off. Now, peace.